Now, when we talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder's drafting success, I mean, you're obviously going to bring up the names of Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. And I mean, just saying those same names in the same sentence kind of gives you enough insight into how good they've been at drafting star players, superstar players, 3 of them in the space of not too many years, which was quite ridiculous. But since drafting those 3 guys, there's been a lot of moves the Thunder have made, and in particular over the last couple of years, that I've really liked. And recently, the development of their young players has just gone through the roof. Like every single one of their young players that have been picked in the 2nd round, undrafted, 1st round, it doesn't matter. It seems like every single one of those players has a promising future, and a lot of it comes down to the development, the new head coach they have, and the system they have in place for young players to succeed. Now, before I go any further, if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I make content like this every single day, and doing so just really helps out how the video goes, so it would be appreciated. No pressure, but it would be appreciated. When we just look at the players on their roster alone this year and how well they've been able to perform at a young age, you have guys like Darius Bazley, Theo Maledon, Lu Dort, Hamidou Diallo, and of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is the only one of those 5 players picked in the lottery, with Maledon and Diallo coming in the 2nd round and Dort undrafted. What does this tell you about the Thunder? Maybe it tells you that they're just fantastic in the draft, but I think what it tells you is they've just got a system in place that allows all of these players to succeed. Now, obviously, everyone has been talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because he looks like a future superstar. He's already a star with the potential to be even greater than he currently is. And then they've got about 89 picks coming through the next 5 or 6 years. And then with all the top prospects in the next 5 to 6 years, it's expected that they're going to get another franchise player to pair with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But at the same time, they're really quietly building a very nice core around Gilgeous-Alexander, and if they add another couple of pieces to the core that they're already building, maybe their rebuild could be completed a lot sooner than people think. But I want to talk about the current, because the current has a lot of players that are in their 1st to 3rd years performing at a well above rate to what you would expect from players who were drafted in the 2nd round, late in the 1st round, or even undrafted in the case of Lu Dort, who's having a fantastic season. I want to start with a player that I know OKC fans are obviously familiar with, but if you're not a fan of the Oklahoma City Thunder, you might just know him from the dunk contest, and that would be nothing wrong with it, because prior to this year, he was kind of an afterthought. He was averaging around 20 minutes a night, which was solid, but giving you about 6 points a game. He was more just a defensive energy guy, and that's Hamidou Diallo, who's rounded out his skill set and become more than just an energy guy on defense, someone who's actually really playable and a really solid offensive player who's making strides in pretty much every aspect of his game. I mean, last year he was just under 7 points a game, and he's now taken that to just shy of 13 a game. And even more impressively, he's been incredibly consistent doing so. He's now scored in double digits 11 consecutive games, and this is really impressive when you consider he only scored in double digits 12 times all of last year. So he's nearly matched that in consecutive games, and in total this season he scored more in double digits than he did all of last year. So his scoring has definitely taken a huge jump, but it's not just because of some crazy extended minutes that he's getting. He's only averaging around a few extra minutes a game, but his effective field goal percentage has gone up nearly 10, which is incredible, and a lot of this comes down to him attacking the rim and getting to the free throw line. He's actually tripled his attempts at the free throw line, which is incredibly impressive. He's gone from under 4 attempts at the rim on like 50-ish% a game to over 5 attempts a game now at over 60% a game. This is a big jump, and this is a jump that you want to see made from someone like Diallo. His strengths have always been his athleticism and his ability to get to the rim. He's always seen as a slasher. Obviously, his three-point shooting is yet to really come along. There's some signs of improvement, but it's still a liability on his end. But if he can do everything else well, which he consistently has been able to do, if you can get there consistently and you can still hold your own at the three-point line so players can't just sag off on you, then that's perfectly fine in my opinion, because clearly it's raised his field goal percentage, it's raised his overall efficiency and overall impact on this team. He's now added some playmaking to his repertoire. He's just doing a number of things better than he was last season. And I think some of the credit for Diallo's success and a number of these players' success has to go to Mark Daigneault, who pretty much has not been talked about at all in terms of having a really quietly good coaching season, because, well, like I said, whenever people bring up the Thunder, they only care about the next 3 to 4 years, but what he's doing this year is really impressive. What he's doing is he's giving a lot of people opportunity to grow as an offensive player. People seem to correlate offensive growth to just how many minutes a game they're getting, or maybe even shots. But in reality, there's got to be a lot of other factors that go into it. And one of those factors is how many times they're touching the ball. Are they actually running plays on any possessions? Are they allowed to have a play where they create for themselves or create for others? Last year, that didn't really happen for any of their young players, and I'm not going to blame Billy Donovan because obviously they had a lot of senior guys that needed the ball in their hands. You had over 5 people getting 50 touches a game last season. This season you just have 2. So you've got guys like Baisley, Dort, Diallo all doubling their touches effectively and doubling the time the ball is in their hands. What does this mean? Well, it basically just means they've got the ball in their hands a lot more. They're allowed to be a part of the offense. Sometimes, if you're running up the floor and just playing defense and then get one shot and you're expected to make it, sometimes it's hard to get that rhythm. It's hard to build that confidence. It's hard to actually hone a different skill set because you're just being asked to defend and shoot once every 15 possessions. This time, with Mark Daigneault, he's actually allowing them to get the ball in their hands, to create for themselves and create for others and see what they can do instead of trying to just kind of pigeonhole them into one thing and then hope that they can succeed at that without actually seeing what could potentially come of their potential. There's just no doubt in my mind that this is the main reason for the improvement from these Thunder players. But Mark Daigneault's not just giving them minutes, he's actually giving them responsibility and opportunity to show whether they can handle the ball, whether they can create for others, create for themselves. And that just allows them to do a lot more than had they just been sitting in a corner playing defense and hitting the occasional shot. But while I'm on the topic of Mark Daigneault, I think it's pretty important to note the career arc of him and why he's such a perfect fit for what the Thunder are trying to do, which is obviously rebuilding. Daigneault spent 5 years as the coach of the G League team and was successful, having multiple very good years. And why do I think this is important? Because I think it's important for him to realize how good the G League can be for certain teams. We've seen it with the Raptors. We've seen it with a number of organizations who have thrived putting players in the G League. And I think one player that comes to mind who I think has a lot of talent is Aleksej Pokusevski, who's going to spend some time in the G League. He spent some time in the NBA and he showed some signs, but let's be honest, he wasn't quite cut out for it, which is what we expected. There was never an expectation that he was going to be a polished prospect. He's someone that just has a lot of potential, and having a good relationship between the G League and the NBA coach should really help his transition when he comes up from the G League, and it should really help Mark Daigneault understand that there's an importance of him getting minutes in the G League and him playing well in the G League. Now, I don't want to make this video too long, but I obviously had to cover the improvement of the Thunder's dynamic backcourt, and we've got to start with Lu Dort. I mean, most people would start with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because he's a future superstar, but let's start with Lu Dort because he obviously burst onto the scene, clamping up James Harden in the playoffs like no one else has been able to do in quite some time. No individual defender, should I say, and he's just a fantastic defender. I think enough has been said about his defense. We know it's fantastic. He's switchable. He can guard guys like LeBron. He can guard guys like James Harden. It doesn't matter. He's going to give his all, and he's going to provide a pretty good account of himself because of his ability to stay in front of people and his sheer strength. But more so, he's made a stride offensively. Now, his three-point shooting has fallen off a cliff over the last 5 or 6 games, so it's a bad time to make this video in terms of his shooting. And I think it was unreasonable to expect his shooting to stay at the same level because the reality is he's just not a very good shooter, and I don't expect him to ever be a great shooter. But if he can be a solid shooter, which I think eventually this season it should level out to the point where he stays around 35%. I hope it does, because if it continues to go downwards, well, then we'll have another question on our hands. But at the moment, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and just say it's a cold patch and he should get back to 35%. But outside of just his shooting and his defense, like Diallo, he's getting to the rim more. He's had the ball in his hands more. He's able to play make more. He's able to create for himself. And he's showing his ability to finish at the rim in a number of different ways. Now, he's by no means a good finisher at the rim. He's just a pretty average, below average finisher at the rim. But last year, he was worse. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for strides. We're looking for improvement. And he's taking that in pretty much every aspect of his game, which is all you can ask for from someone who's getting paid like $1 million a year, which I feel bad for him. Yeah, never would I thought I'd feel bad for an NBA player getting paid $6 million over 4 years. But when it comes to Lu Dort, well, that's at least probably a third of what he could be getting paid, that's tough. In terms of Shai, This video is probably getting too long now, so if you came for a Shai explanation, I apologize, but we know what Shai is. He's a superstar. I'll just put it very simply for you and very quickly. How many players go from playing on a playoff team with guys like Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari, Steven Adams around him to a transition team, a real rebuilding team, now being the face of the franchise? They get more opportunity at a young age, but not only do they get more opportunity and put up better numbers, but they put up better efficiency. They improve their playmaking, their scoring, their shooting, all of these aspects of their offensive game. How many players can do that? Very few. How many players have done that? Very few. For a player to go from playing with such great players around him to now solid young players, but obviously that's all they are at the moment, and for him to improve his efficiency, his playmaking, pretty much every aspect of his game, without taking a hit in really any aspect of his game, that just tells me all you need to know about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because once these other guys come along with him, yeah, well, he could be anything. In terms of their front court, there's some promising signs. I think Isaiah Roby, at the very least, is going to be a solid, serviceable NBA-level starting center that is kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, which Isaiah Roby is. He can defend, he can play make a little bit, he's showing signs of stretching the floor, all of these things he's showing. If he can continue to develop and become just a little bit better at everything, then he's going to be a solid NBA-level starting center, or at the very least, he's going to be a fantastic bench player. And to get him late in the second round as well, just another great pick. Darius Bazley, he's someone that has a higher ceiling. And I wouldn't even say he's got a lower floor, because we've already kind of seen his floor. This is his floor. He's only going to get better from here. He's shown flashes of being a star. That's all you're going to get from someone who's 20 years of age and was seen as a project coming into the NBA. I mean, he was straight out of high school. He didn't play any college basketball. For him to already be at the level he's at, I think is impressive enough. And obviously his efficiency is going to go up. He's going to improve aspects of his game as he gets stronger and as he gets more accustomed to the league. But at the moment, we've already seen signs of him becoming very, very good going forward. And then the two players from this draft, I mean, Pokusevski I'm really high on. I think he's got incredible upside. And Theo Maledon already looks like a solid NBA level starting guy, like Isaiah Roby, except he's 19 years of age, or is he 20? I don't know. He's very young to be this good already. One of the best players from the draft currently. That's a really impressive steal to get early in the second round. And it's just another Thunder kind of pick. Like, they just don't seem to miss with their draft picks. It just kind of sums up a lot of these guys I've talked about. They're just consistently good. And once the Thunder get a couple of those top picks coming forward, you add those picks to a number of really good role players and then a couple of stars around those role players. They've already got one of those stars, potentially two, if Pokusevski, Bazley, whoever else can hit, and then you add in a top draft pick as well. Yeah, the Thunder might have more in their hands than people give them credit for. Video's too long as it is now, so I'm not going to finish with an outro. Basically, have a good day. Catch you next time. Bye.